Sony are being sued again. So this was updated yesterday. Sony faces multiple lawsuits over physical disc issue. Now, you should know that Sony is going to stop manufacturing physical discs in 2028, and that's triggered antitrust legal action in the Netherlands and now also Mexico. So as it says here, the 457 million Dutch case just got even bigger. So a consumer group in the Netherlands is seeking around 457 million in damages, and that just covers users in that country. So their argument is that with no competing storefronts allowed on PlayStation hardware and physical discs are disappearing entirely, then that the argument is that consumers will have nowhere else to turn but going to Sony. Now, I did mention this in my last video, that the competition law, if they eradicate discs and no one else is allowed to sell them, but on the PlayStation store, then there's no competition. They are the only place you can buy their games from. They can charge whatever they want, and there is no competition against what they're paying. Mexico are now trying to file a complaint with the country's National Antitrust Commission. The ask is an investigation into Sony's distribution practices following the physical games announcement. The core of the concern mirrors the Dutch case, so a single closed storefront, no competition. Prices are set by Sony. So Sony's potential counter here is its stated plan to keep supplying retailers with products, like in the form of codes in a box or, you know, GTA 6 physical edition at some point. But then, you know, it also goes into bigger details down here. So we're talking about why the code in the box defense might not hold. It sounds like a compromise, you know, and as Sony does hold 50% of the EU's gaming market, it does put a bit more pressure on Sony. And this leads on nicely to the UK retail body slamming PlayStation over this. So the Entertainment Retailers Association is calling out Sony for walking away from 402 million UK disc market. So you've got to think, if they're doing that globally, what are they losing out for discs globally? It'll be billions. So they have done a warning here. So they've got Kim Bailey, who is the CEO of Entertainment Retailers Association. She said a disc can be shared with family, traded in, collected, preserved, and crucially still played years from now. A download license often offers none of those freedoms, and that's what everybody's been saying. And I think this is only going to get worse. So the ERA represents major UK retailers, so that's Amazon, Sainsbury's, a number of other ones within those groups as well, the home group. So this isn't a fringe consumer complaint. This is the trade body for the people who actually are selling the games in the UK. And they're telling Sony directly that walking away from physical media is bad for business and bad for players. But you know, they know this already. And they've gone into a bit more detail further down here, where that shows that 25% of under 25-year-olds use discs for gaming. So a quarter of the youngest gaming demographic, the exact audience that, you know, Sony really wants to keep for the next 30 years. And, you know, if you think people who were getting discs in the 90s, early 2000s, who are now getting into the older category of gamers, who are not going to be the core demographic. The younger people are going to be the core demographic for them growing up and keeping them on the Sony PlayStation brand. I think what makes this unique is that generally users, players, retailers, developers, you know, publishers rarely agree on anything. But right now, everyone's all in the same camp and everyone's coming together, whether you are a player or whether you are a developer or whether you are a retailer. This is not landing well at all. Now retail trade bodies are getting involved. Sony's getting sued. Everyone's working together as a group to kind of get this resolved and get an answer from Sony, because they have not said a word in 2 weeks or more. I want to end on this note here, where the EU says it can't stop Sony from ending physical PlayStation game releases. So companies are free to offer games and services in the manner they see fit, which is partially true and partially not true. So people are hoping that the EU could force Sony to abandon its plans to stop making new games. That is exactly what I said in one of my other videos, just because of the competition law. But an EU commissioner has said that companies are free to make games in whatever they want, including killing off physical media and offering them in download only. But that is provided that consumer rights are fully protected, he has said to reports at the European Parliament. Now, EU is normally really tough on these kind of, they do like to make sure the competition law is upheld and that people do not have their own monopoly of making lots of money and forcing people down a singular route. Currently, they don't want to do anything. They don't want to get involved in it. I guess if things change and Sony go down a different route, or it is definitely going to look like there's only one way to buy it and they're going to control all the costs involved, then I think they will probably get involved. We need to see the outcome of the lawsuits in Mexico and Netherlands, and we'll also need to see if we're going to get a response from Sony. Sony's done completely the wrong thing, really, haven't they? They just need to answer the question. They need to come up with some kind of idea. It's been 2 weeks and nothing's come out of it. We all want to see a resolution. We want to have options when we look at games. If you can get a game for $10 instead of $50, it just seems like it is all about the money, the cost of making the discs, and then the cost of what they're selling on the PS Store versus physical games as well. If they can control that, then they can control all the costs, and their profit just goes straight up through the roof. It'd be interesting though, the exact percentage globally who buy discs versus physical media. As a gamer for the last 20 years, I really want to know what's going on. I want to know which direction it's going to go, and I want to know if I have to buy disc or if I'm not going to buy disc, if I have to buy digital media and how I'm going to do that, and if I'm going to do that, in which way I'm going to do that. Now we're coming into the weekend. It'd be interesting to see if we get any kind of answer, any kind of news coming out of this from Sony. I highly doubt it because, well, they've got these lawsuits now piling up on top of them. They can't really talk about what's happening. There's probably the lawyers are telling them not to say anything about it until they've got through the lawsuits. And then if they get out of the lawsuits unscathed, then they'll probably continue on their path. Or there'll be some kind of resolution they'll come out to see that they're listening to the people. But if they were listening to the people, they wouldn't have done this in the first place. They would have thought about this or put out something and get people's opinions before they just outright did it. Right, I'm going to go. It's quite late at night while I'm recording this video, and it is cereal time for me. So I will see you in the next one.